Yep.
Excellent. Thank you, Meg and Josh in absentia for inviting us here to share with you what we've been doing with the Plant Humanities Lab. And so I'll give you a quick introduction to what that is and where that came from, but we're gonna spend most of this time diving a little bit into the technical side of our use for IIIF, which is very central to how we've designed this site. To get started, I think it's just a quick bit of background, and we'll go pretty quick through this stuff. This project came out of the Plant Humanities Initiative, which was a 3-year project funded by the Mellon Foundation. It's a collaboration between Dumbarton Oaks in Washington, D.C. and JSTOR Labs, and the Plant Humanities Lab that we'll be showing you was one of, if not the primary output of that project. Our goal was to create a platform that integrated primary sources, online resources, secondary literature in order to narrate and foster the exploration of the cultural histories and influence of plants. And before we show you that and walk through what that means, I think it's helpful to step back just really quickly and look at what plant humanities is as a sort of a new field that's beginning to emerge and that we're hoping to expand interest in. So when you look at how humans and plants have interacted, there are a number of disciplinary lenses that you can take to explore those stories. There are medicinal, botanical, scientific, economic, agricultural, and also artistic and cultural lenses that you can take to those stories. And it was really important to us that we create a platform that supports as many of those lenses as possible, and even moving between them so that the same plant could be analyzed via a variety of different measures. The second key aspect to the study that we were trying to support was that plant humanities is very much centers image-rich primary sources. So botanical illustrations, herbaria specimens, artistic renderings. There are so many incredible image-focused images that are central to the story and not just something to include in a thumbnail or to mention, but we really wanted a platform that allowed them to be as central as possible to the narrativizing and the work itself. And that's where IIIF is so important for us. So now what I'll do is I'll shift over and give you a whirlwind tour of the Plant Humanities Lab. I will say this is a live resource, so feel free to go to it and poke around. I will also emphasize that it's a work in progress. We're a labs team. This is a beta site, and so we're always looking for feedback. So as we're thinking about those primary sources and allowing interdisciplinary explorations of plants and their influence on human societies, we wanted users of this site to be able to take both guided and unguided tours through those stories, to be able to, through those primary sources around plants. And that led to the two key elements of the site. And the first are these plant narratives. There's about 15 or 20 of them. They're really fascinating. I'm not going to be able to dive too deep into them, but just to give you an idea, they tell a story of a particular plant using those different lenses and from different perspectives. Each paragraph that has been written is paired with an image, is a component that augments that narrative, and that component is very often an image, which Ashley and Ron will tell you more about. But it's not only that; there are other ways to augment the primary text, including timelines and digital data visualizations, and also maps, since the mobility of plants is so central to how and where and also when humans have interacted with them. I'm not going to get too much more into that. You can explore for yourself. But that's the one mode. The first mode is sort of a guided tour through the primary sources. The other is this thing that we call plant search, which is where a person can explore on their own, basically get a plant specific view of all of wiki data and linked open data. So if I do a search for flowering dogwood, one of my favorite species, and you can search for anything, including people and books and places, you'll see a plant oriented view of the data that's available. So I can browse the taxonomic tree of this particular species, see the publication where the page in BHL where Linnaeus originally identified the taxon, but I can also see global specimens or plant specimens from JSTOR Global Plants, articles in JSTOR and Wikidata that are about this particular species, images from ArtStore and the Biodiversity Heritage Library and elsewhere of the species, and more. And you can do this for more than just species, but other things as well. There's a lot more here, but I'm gonna jump back to this presentation just in the interest of time so we can get to Ron and Ashley. Um, I, I think it's, so the Plant Humanities Lab, the thing that I just showed you, is a specific instance of a generic tool that JSTOR Labs will be releasing later this spring called Juncture. And our goal with Juncture, which will be an open source tool, is that it will allow other teams of scholars and students to create sites like the Plant Humanities Lab, sites that are inherently interdisciplinary and image rich, but about any topic, not just plants, but anything else that they would like to bring an interdisciplinary lens to and use this kind of tool. So Ron will tell you more about that. And in the meantime, I'm going to hand it over to Ashley to walk through what it's like to use the tool as an author oriented with images. So Ashley, I'll stop sharing and hand that over to you.
Thank you, Alex. And I will go ahead and share my
All yours.
screen. Oops. Of course, what I need is not coming up, sorry. Sorry, I think my tab accidentally closed. One moment, technical difficulties.
No worries at all.
So sorry. Here we go. Okay. I had closed all these tabs so you all wouldn't judge me and pulled up Peony, but that one accidentally closed. So can everyone see the visual essay?
Yep.
Okay. So this is something that I am currently working on, which is an essay on peony. And so the great thing about the Plant Humanities Initiative is that it was very much a full collaboration between the technical side at labs and then the intellectual side of Plant Humanities at Dumbarton Oaks. And so it was really exciting as a scholar. I'm a historian of early modern medicine. Specifically, I focus on Italy and the late Medici court. So it was really exciting to have to help build a platform where I felt I could better communicate my research and scholarship for students and for a public audience. And IIIF has been such an important component in that. And it's just allowed us to really develop engaging ways for the reader to interact with the material. And for me as a scholar, it's vital in explaining what I want them to look at, what I want to focus on, and points that I want to make in a very clear way. So one of my favorite yet simple functionalities with IIIF is its ability to zoom and pan, but also to connect to text. And so I can highlight when I want them to really focus on a particular part of the image. I can zoom in and really kind of push the reader to have that kind of close visual analysis. As Alex mentioned, there are, of course, other aspects such as maps. And one of my favorite components is the ability to annotate. And so you can take a very large complex image such as this, and you can take the reader or students through all the points that you want to make and highlight for each thing. And of course, again, zoom in and show them a part of the image that probably would have gotten lost had they just been staring at this on their own. And I think the inclusion of such beautiful and rich imagery is really, really important as students and the public go through and read these. And I think it really adds a lot of depth to them and engagement. One of my favorites is this, sorry, they're very high res, so they sometimes take a second to load, especially when I have 1,200 apps open. But one of my favorites is this ability to compare specimens. So of course, Alex mentioned images, and we often think of art or photographs, but it also allows us to do herbarium specimens. It allows us to do actual primary sources from BHL, which is one of our big focuses, is using herbarium specimen and botanical works as primary sources to really show students how we are building these narratives and how we're doing the research, to show the method as well as the result of that research. And again, I love that I can focus on different parts of the image to really highlight what I'm trying to say and then bring their attention elsewhere with the point that I'm trying to make. And again, that focus on primary sources and really getting students to see the primary sources that we're using, connecting to BHL, connecting to rich repositories, and then having that high res where they can actually go in and read what is on the page and hopefully interrogate that source deeper on their own. So for me as a scholar, I feel like this has been a game changer, and I think it will be in the classroom. You know, I now realize that if I'm trying to show students something, I can take an image, make it IIIF, I can annotate it, I can zoom in and out. Now that a lot of us have had to move to virtual teaching, what an incredible resource it has been for me as an educator. So I'll pass it on to Ron, who's going to go a lot more into the technical side of this. He knows a lot more than I do, but that from the scholar, user, creator side has been such an incredible resource.
Okay, so hi, I'm Ron. I'm going to take a little bit of a deep dive into some of the technical details. And I'm hopefully, if time permits, I'm going to do a little bit of a live demo of actually creating an essay and walk through that process. Give you a little bit more insight into what that entails, and maybe even talk a bit more about how the tool can be extended to go beyond the capabilities that we provide out of the box. It was designed from the start to be extensible, to be able to allow new viewers or extensions to existing viewers to be easily added. So I'll talk a bit about that. So to start, I've got a couple charts. So I'll share my screen. And I'll try not to dwell on these charts too long. I know that can get tedious, but it is helpful to kind of establish some of the context. So hopefully everybody can see that. So I'm going to talk a bit about Juncture, which, as Alex mentioned, is the generalized version of the Plant Humanities Lab. So we built the Plant Humanities Lab, and as those things typically go, we made a lot of assumptions, and we baked a few things into the implementation that were pretty specific to that project. But realizing that the tool itself has a lot of utility beyond that project, or even beyond botany and plants, so we wanted to create a resource that could be used for other purposes. So basically, kind of picked it apart, and now we're reassembling it in such a way that I think it does provide that generalized framework that can be used for creating essays, or even a site of many essays, such as the Plant Humanities Lab. So I'm going to talk about Juncture, and the demo I do will be around using Juncture to create an essay, but it's essentially the same process as Ashley and others have used to create the essays for the Plant Humanities Lab. All right, so conceptually, what Juncture is it's a set of JavaScript code that will take a markdown file and create an interactive web page, as you saw in the earlier walkthrough by Alex and Ashley. So that's what it is at a very simple level. It takes a markdown file and then uses one or more viewer components to create those interactive walkthroughs. And we support a number of things out of the box. So of course, the images and the maps that we've seen. We can also use this to generate more multimedia, such as videos, and you can customize the header and footer. Those are the kind of things that can be done. And a person who is so inclined could also create their own customized components. So you can create your own version of the image viewer, for instance, or create a new component that isn't even part of the current set. Those can be done pretty easily and can extend what comes out of the box. So that's sort of it at a very high level what Juncture is. It's just something that takes Markdown and renders it as an HTML page. So in creating the Plant Humanities Lab and also in creating this more generalized version of Juncture, some of the objectives or design principles that we've been following. First of all, we want to make sure this is usable by as many people as possible. So making it free or low cost, that was an objective. Let's go back up here. No proprietary tools or data formats. Pretty much this is all using straight up Markdown, although we do have a couple of extensions that we've added to the Markdown parser, but for the most part, it's pretty much just plain Markdown and HTML that's being used. Wanted to make the deployments and updates pretty easy. Allow this to be extended to add new components or customized versions of components. It actually showed this interaction framework, the ability to connect the text with the visualizations and have a way to seamlessly go back and forth between the images and the maps and the text. Mobile friendly, easy to use, and hopefully in my demo I'll kind of prove that point. I think it is relatively easy to use, although there are certainly areas that we can make that even easier. And that's, as Alex mentioned, this is a work in progress, and we're at a point in time, and I think it's easier now than it was 2 months ago, but hopefully down the road it's even easier yet. So some of the key technologies that we're using, so that the source for the essays are plain text with Markdown formatting and a couple of very simple HTML tags to provide the declaration of the viewers that are used for a particular paragraph. We're using a JavaScript framework called Vue.js. If you're familiar with the JavaScript framework landscape, Vue is a pretty popular one. This is probably the third most popular behind React and Angular. It's my personal favorite, but there are others that do similar things. Linked open data, we're definitely using a lot of linked open data, Wikidata in particular, IIIF, of course. We're using OpenSeaDragon for our viewer, but the architecture would allow other types of backends or core viewers to be used for this. Leaflet for maps, GeoJSON, D3. Actually, this list could go deeper. There are a number of other things that we're using kind of indirectly, but these are the main ones. All right, so the overall, got ahead of myself here. The overall architecture, the only thing that's really required is a GitHub account. The code does make the assumption that the Markdown files used for the visual essays are hosted in a GitHub repository. And that was a decision that was made for a couple of reasons. One is, in some sense, GitHub can be thought of as a content management system with a lot of very powerful version control capabilities. It also has a pretty rich interface allowing for access control and integration with other tools. And it's a web hosting site as well. You can use GitHub Pages, which is a technology that will generate HTML from other artifacts on the GitHub site. So it provides a lot of functionality out of the box. That's the only thing that's really required to create a visual essay. Of course, if you want to use the IIIF functionality, then connecting your essay to a IIIF server is often needed. Although in reality, you don't need a IIIF server to generate the zooming and panning capabilities. OpenSeaDragon allows you to create image pyramids without a back-end IIIF server. That's an option. The performance isn't quite as good as having an actual image server behind it, but you can actually use all of the image capabilities without using a server infrastructure. Although we do. Other services that are pretty commonly used, Wikipedia and Wikidata, various map tile servers and such. Okay, so that was kind of a quick run through of the charts to lay the foundation for what will be hopefully a successful live demo. So I'm going to move that out of the way. And let me see, I've got another window over here somewhere. Here we go. All right. So Juncture it's both an open source project that can be forked or cloned and used independent of the Juncture site that I'm showing here, but it's also a website that can be used to create essays and render them. So it's a bit of a service and also a code base. I will be demoing this as a service, so you don't have to fork or clone this to use it, but that's certainly a possibility. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through a quick demo of, let me move this off to the side and open a new window, of what a visual essay creation process looks like. All right. So for this demo, I'm going to go into my personal GitHub account. And I'm going to create a new repository. We'll just call this demo. So for folks that have used GitHub, this probably looks pretty familiar. So I'm going to create the repository. So the repository is initialized with the README file, which is the practice that GitHub uses. These markdown files that are sort of an index file for the repository. So this essay I'm going to create, and I think I can do this in 4 minutes or less. I timed myself earlier, but we'll see how that goes. So I'm going to create an essay that I'm going to use my hometown as sort of the topic here. So I'm from Ann Arbor, so I'm going to give this a markdown header. Ann Arbor. And in the interest of time, I'm going to steal some text from Wikipedia. We have a couple of paragraphs here. It's just make this process quick. Do that. Right. I will save this. So in essence, I've got a visual essay now. If I go back here, and with this website, if you append your GitHub username and the repo name, as I did here, it will render that as an essay. In this case, we're not getting a lot of interesting information yet. We just have this canned text that I pasted in. To turn this into an actual essay, you need to add a couple of tags, and this is part of what we'll we'll provide examples and a lot of documentation in the release version of the tool that guides you through this process. I'll just do it real quick here. Right, and by default, it renders the.
You might be missing an open quote there before Ann Arbor.
I was just about to tell him that.
Okay, yeah, my real-time copy editors, thank you.
Paired programming, Ron, paired programming.
That are, in this case, maybe triplet. Okay, so yeah, by default, it renders the essays in this horizontal mode, but I want to do the side-by-side thing, so I'm gonna ask it to do that. Let's save this just to show you sort of what's going on here. We'll re-render this. There we go. So we've got the format and the layout and the title and the header. So the first thing I'll do is tap into the power of linked open data. This is one of the the things that make this tick, is the ability to tell the essay tool what this is about. So in this case, each of these tags have a similar structure. There's a param, which is a legal HTML tag, and then there's an attribute that defines what it is that we're trying to do with this tag. In this case, I want to define an entity. So you just int entity tag. Go back to my Wikipedia page. And so Wikipedia has these convenient links on the side that will take you to the Wikidata item that corresponds to the page. And what I want to grab here is this so-called Q identifier, which is unambiguously telling the tool that this is about this entity. So I've done that real quick. Let me just combine these into a single paragraph. So the simplest tag to use to create a visualization is this map tag. So we'll start with that. Map on the essay. All right. All right, so we have a map. We can give the map some hints. I want to have it centered. So for the center, you can use lat long coordinates, or you can also put in the QID for the location. And what happens behind the scenes is that Wikidata is queried, and we find the geo coordinates for this location. And I'll set the zoom level to something a little closer in. All right. There we go. I'm going to do something real quick because sometimes a single point on the map isn't all that interesting. So I'm going to also kind of tap into the Wikidata backend, and I'm going to give the tag a hint and tell it that I prefer to use a shapefile if it's available. So GeoJSON shapefiles. So if I do this, and there we go. We've got the shapefile applied to the map as an overlay. Okay, since this is a IIIF meeting, I will add a IIIF image and show you how that's done, and I'll also do a quick annotation of that image to walk through that process. All right, so not surprising, I'm guessing by this point, the attribute for that is the VE map. VE is kind of a holdover from an earlier version of this that was on the visual essay side. So VE is sort of a prefix that we use for all these tags. I need to give it a URL. The source image, again, I'll go back here. This is a nice image. I'll use that one. All right. I'll grab the highest resolution version of it. Since this will be a IIIF image, I want to get the best quality version, so I use the original. I can give it a label. I'll just call it. Okay, so this VE image tag, I'll tell you a little bit about what's going on here before I add these other attributes, and it'll be clear why I'm doing this. This will, behind the scenes, automatically create a IIIF manifest. So it creates a IIIF version 2 manifest behind the scenes. And when the essay is rendered, it's using the manifest to generate the image, and it also has the information that is embedded in the metadata to create the captions and licensing and attribution information. So I'm going to add an attribution statement here. Go back to the source image. So it looks like the author is Joanne Goat. Okay. The license, I think it was what was that license? Oh, ISA. All right. Refresh this guy. If we go here, there we go. So we have our high-res IIIF image. We've got the attribution and licensing information. If I want to annotate this, I can click on this annotation icon. Just do a couple of simple annotations. So we got this bell tower. I'll add that. I don't know what this thing with the yellow awning is, but we'll just pretend it's a pizza place. So I'll annotate that. And there we go. All right, so you could add more annotations, and obviously you'd probably want to add better descriptions than I just did. But once those are added, you can cycle through those and play around with those. So there we have our IIIF image.
Hey, Ron.
Yeah.
There's a question in the chat from Tina Shah. Behind the scenes, are the images being copied to a IIIF server?
Yes. They are. So let me. I will revisit that question. I mean, one more thing I want to show on this, and then I'll go back to the diagram and I'll show you a bit about what's happening under the covers. But the quick answer is yes. The last thing I wanted to show. So we've got this. We've got the text. We've got the IIIF image. We have our map. Which. All right. But we still have this. Not terribly exciting header. I'm going to do a real quick. So far for the header, I'm going to go to Wikimedia Commons and find something a bit more interesting. I'll use this one. All right. So for this one, since this is only going to be shown in the header, I don't need the best version. I'm going to grab something that's a bit more bandwidth friendly. So I'll grab this version. here. So I can add a banner for the. Right. Save that, refresh the page. And there we go. So I think that was more than the 4 minutes I thought it was going to be, but that is the process of creating a visual essay with a map, and in this case, a IIIF image with some annotations. You would, naturally do more on that, more paragraphs, more visualizations, and so forth. Okay, so let me go back to the question about what is happening. If I can find my, where's my PowerPoint? I think I lost it. Oh, here it is. All right. So under the covers, I'll go to this diagram. So when the tool, which sits kind of in the middle between the GitHub source and these services, so it will take the information in that tag, that VE image tag, and create a request that's sent to a server that I am running in Google Cloud. So there's a very simple front end that will take that and create a manifest in a backend Mongo database, and then we'll also point that image to this hosting service we use for the image server, and then it will create the tiles for the IIIF image. So it makes a copy of it. So that, I think, it was the question that was asked. We're using this IIIF hosting. We've also used a homegrown version of a IIIF image server, and other backends are possible. We're still trying to figure out exactly what the optimal solution for that is, but right now we're using a hosted service. So that was a quick and dirty overview of what it takes to create an essay, and kind of focusing on the IIIF. Oh, I can do a real quick. For me, I think we have time. Hopefully, I'm not going to get too short on time here. I'm going to do one more quick thing if I wanted to.
Maybe I can add real quick while Ron is
Yeah.
preparing what he wants to say, that we, while we initially started this with scholars using it to create essays, we have piloted it with students, and it's gone over incredibly well with students using this.
So this is not styled at all, and this is pretty rough. Hopefully, when we release this, which will be a few weeks yet, but we're getting close. This would be a little bit more pleasing from a style point of view. But we have a lot of examples, and I'll real quickly go through the IIIF example sampler. Some of this we've already seen, but this shows on a paragraph by paragraph basis a few of the features and the tags that are used to generate that. So we've got this one has, I think this does have an image or an annotation, right? It does. So again, you can kind of provide a guided tour through that. You can use different attributes to fit the image. So in this case, we have the cover where it takes up the whole space. In some cases, you want to have the image shown in its proper orientation. So you can use this other fit option. You can zoom in on a particular region. In this case, the earring, of course, all the rotation things that are possible with IIIF. This is zoom to. This is a way of kind of connecting your text with the image. In this case, if you click on it, it zooms in. In this case, you can hover over it and it will zoom. So those are a couple things. Another one that we just added is this image comparison. This is an interesting project that we're doing as a side project with some folks in Canterbury. And they have a bunch of historic postcards from I think this particular one was from 1918, and shows sort of the before and after. So this is the historic postcard. This is that same scene recently, I think within the last month or so even, and you can zoom in and pan around. same deal with the sync mode. So that's kind of a cool effect. My favorite one is this one of this church. You zoom in. So really a nice effect. It's almost pixel perfect, the before and after. Whoever took the current photo, yeah, was really skilled at getting us lined up. You can see that it's almost pixel by pixel. Another, well, yeah, here's one with a three-way. These don't line up particularly well. This was kind of a quick and dirty. I grabbed 3 images, but you can kind of do that effect. So some of the IIIF, things that we're trying to take advantage of.
Ron, there's a question from Peter Binkley in the chat of what the benchmarks, whether we have benchmarks for the costs of using services like IIIF hosting and Google Cloud in this way.
Oh, so Google Cloud. So you're thinking of using Google Cloud as a way as the host for a open source IIIF server, I assume. Google Cloud is incredibly cheap. We're using it as the front end for the Mongo, and basically it takes the requests from the Juncture tool and then farms those out and such. But it runs on demand, so it's not a continuously running server. So it's very cheap to run, and you could probably do something similar with a more proper IIIF solution. I don't have benchmarks, but I will say that Google Cloud Run is quite cheap to use. Now, for the IIIF hosting that we're using for the Plant Humanities, they have I'll put air quotes around free, because I think if you want to use their free service, I think you can use it for 5 images. So you don't go very far with that. Then they're tiered after that, and I think the next tier allows you to use, I probably don't have the numbers right, but it's hundreds or low thousands of images. And I think at that point, you're talking a few $100s a year to use it. The next tier up, I think, allows you to put in 5,000 images, I think. And then I think that runs somewhere around $1,000 a year. Again, I don't have the numbers exactly right, but that's an order of magnitude. So that's kind of what it would cost to use the hosted service.
I don't have to read these, Ron. You can yourself, but I'll continue to MC. Matthew Westerby says, "How are those images registered for the hover over tool?"
How are they registered? So there's a span, an HTML span that wraps the text in the essay, so the narrative will have a span tag that wraps them. And part of what the framework does is it will register an event handler. So when you hover over that, or you click on it, or whatever the event is that you want to interact with, the framework takes care of that and will invoke a function on the component that causes that to happen. So it's just straight up HTML. There's nothing magic going on.
The next one is Regis. Are the image annotations structured as IIIF? And if so, are they traveling with the manifest generated by Junction?
Yeah, great question. In earlier versions of this, I actually had a W3C compliant annotation server as a backend, and the annotations were pushed and pulled from that server. In the current version, in the interest of trying to minimize the infrastructure required to run this, let me show you. I'm going to do a quick screen share. So this thing I just did, this demo that I went through. Let me go back to my. So this is the GitHub repository that was created with this demo. And you'll notice we've got the README file here. But if I go back, you'll also notice this JSON file. This is the file that is used to store the annotations. And so this is updated as annotations are created. And of course, it's read when the annotation is used in display mode. And we're using Annotorius as the plugin to OpenCDragon to generate these. And I'm pretty sure it uses just a standard annotation format. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you very much.
I'd also flag, I mean, you all have a lot of experience with IIIF. And so if there are things that we're missing, either functionality that would be helpful to add or resources or approaches that in your experience we should consider, we would welcome any and all insights and input that you guys might have.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that comment because I mean, in some respects, what we're doing with IIIF isn't groundbreaking in any way. I mean, a lot of these things we're doing are wrappers around existing tools like OpenSeaDrag and even that image compare thing. That was something somebody else created, and we provide a wrapper around that to use it. But I think there are lots of opportunities for taking what we've done and actually, kind of pushing the envelope a little bit. So I would, encourage anybody that's interested in helping to kind of evolve the IIIF capability to contribute to the open source project when we open source it, or even reach out to me directly. And I'd love to collaborate with somebody who was interested in trying to do that. Yeah, I think the value of Juncture is less about the specific technologies, the IIIF or the map, the geospatial stuff. It's really more about the ability to integrate those and create textual narratives that hopefully in a relatively easy way ties these all together into some engaging and interesting way.
Are there any other questions from folks for Ron and Alex and Ashley?
So is the Juncture website public? Well, it is public in the sense that you can go to it now and actually you can use it in much the same way that I just did. It's a user beware sort of thing. This is a pre-release version and under active development, so it may or may not work all the time as you'd expect. But our time frame is to have a release version of this ready, and I would guess 3 or 4 weeks would probably be a realistic time frame.
Yeah, so we'll do an announcement. I mean, it might just be on Twitter or the JSTOR Labs blog or something. And if you're interested, if you want to just let me or Ron know, and we can make sure that we email you and message you when it's official. Yeah. You can play now, but you're playing with some pretty raw stuff. Even after, it'll still be a work in progress, but it'll be ready to be supported at that time.
So there's a question about the Wikidata Q identifier. So that the Q identifier is used to, in essence, perform a Sparkle query against the Wikidata knowledge graph to pull those properties that associated with that entity, and those properties provide a lot of rich information. Right now, we're using just a small sliver. We're using that to get geo coordinates, or in some cases, GeoJSON shapefile references, but there are many other things we could do. I didn't show it in the example, and I should have, but if you hover over a tagged entity in the text, it will bring up an info box that that provides information that comes from Wikidata.
Somebody asked if the video recording of this session will be made public. Meg, you can confirm, but I believe that is the case. Is that right?
Yeah, so we just process it and upload it to the IIIF YouTube channel. And I will also put it into the notes for the meeting today. So 2 different ways to access.
I'll add a third. We'll link to it from the labs.jstor.org presentations page as well.
Perfect.
To the video and the slide deck.
Excellent. So we are just about at time. This was great. Thank you all so much for the presentation. It was really wonderful to see. Juncture is really cool. I can't wait to see how it comes along in the coming weeks. So again, I will upload the recording to YouTube. Look for that maybe towards the end of the week. And I will also put a link in the notes. And we typically send out a notice that the recording is available in our newsletter. So in the coming weeks, if you forget, it'll be in the newsletter if you've signed up for that. So thanks again, all, and we will see you again in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, bye, everyone.